Hello, everyone. Happy April Fool's Day. It's been a while since I did one of these. Right now, I'm alone in the house and decided it might be a good idea to give one a try. So, here are a few questions and answers and whatnot. But first, housekeeping, I suppose you'd call it. Although, book housekeeping, not real housekeeping, because this place is dirty. Temporal Contingency, Book 4 in Big Sigma, released just about a week ago, a little over a week ago. So if you are a fan of my sci-fi, then you've got a fourth book to look forward to, unless you're already reading it, in which case I hope you're enjoying it. So far, I've received pretty good reviews, and it's sold well enough. I think it's paid for itself already. So from this point forward, it's making me a profit. That's great news. Also, you some people may or may not have noticed, and I know I've mentioned it a few times, the new cabinet here, the Cabinet of Awesomeness. That's what I'm calling it. It's the official name. And I thought it might be interesting to show you. Like, it used to be over here. There would be a whole bunch of the stuff that I had commissioned and whatnot, and it was getting all dusty, and I was afraid someone would knock it down. And then we got this new thing. It's mirrored on the video. We got this new thing over here, which will keep them nice and clean and display them in a well-lit area. So let's take a look at what's inside.
So there's the Cabinet of Awesomeness. I figured I'd give everybody a little bit of a tour. Let's try to get the reflection out of there. There's Solby, and Solby, the Solby bunch, by mostly by Bubble Rhapsody Design, although this one right here is by Lelia Clay. I think I'm pronouncing that right now. I recently saw a thing where she explained it. This here, I believe Robo Shark is what the sculptor goes by. No longer doing plush, well, not sculpting, but no longer doing plush, but still illustrating, I believe. More Bubble Rhapsody, a couple of mins here. That also is min, obviously. Here, this one is the one that would be mass-produced if I could get a Kickstarter together. That one over there is just, a test of it, what she called derpy. It's just the smaller, easier one. That's the super high detail one, which probably wouldn't get mass-produced at all. Too complicated. Over here, these are ones that don't represent any of my characters. That's Jimmy DiResta of YouTube fame. And that's a big industrial cow, and that's Jimmy DiResta's cat, Spike. If you don't know Jimmy DiResta, watch his videos. They're very entertaining. He makes stuff. We've also got this, which is really, I don't like to pick favorites, but this might be my favorite shelf. We got these two guys, Min and Ivy, made by a fan. More Lelia Clay. We got Emily Sculpts. Over there is from Vistar. I got this for being in the Blackguards anthology. So that's not, I didn't commission that, but it's cool enough I put it on this shelf. Because again, I like this shelf. Let's not forget Halifax in the back there. Just talking to a fellow author about Halifax, a big favorite of mine that not a lot of people read about because he's tucked away in the novella Jade, which is frequently forgotten amongst my fans. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't correct myself. These two are Solby, but this one is Squee. And if I'm going to call them a bunch of any kind, I shouldn't call them the Solby bunch. I should be calling them the Funky bunch because they're all funks. And then down here we have some stuff I made, so some of it. You might recognize the pendant that I made floating in the air mysteriously over a hologram projector. There's a dice ring and some 3D printed stuff. I 3D printed and sculpted some of it. The dragon, for example, and the communicator badge. And the prototype of the aforementioned thing. Some of them were printed professionally. That's a question mark block and a dice that I sculpted, and on top are some figurines, one of which I painted. Down here are just some goodies and stuff that I got from various places. I got my Mickey Mouse ears, I got my Reading Rainbow mug. I mean, you name it. And down here is where there's lots of storage, and over there is some pretzels. But the other big thing, the other big impressive thing about this is that I installed this big, bright, hard to see light, and it is multicolor lighting. It's very impressive. There's the Cabinet of Awesomeness, filled with awesome things that everyone loves. The end.
I'm very, very happy with the cabinet, and I'm looking forward to filling it with even more wonderful things. In fact, I've got another figurine on the way, and I was brainstorming something earlier today, which I can't talk about because it might change my mind, and I don't want you to be disappointed. But that concludes the little, non-interesting things, I suppose. And so now we'll get into the interesting stuff. These are two questions that were asked a while ago that I never got around to because I haven't been making these videos. Both by Billy, who has asked questions in the past. Some clarification was required, so I'm gonna paraphrase. And both of them, however, before I get to it, both of them require the spoiler hat. So, spoiler hat engaged. Fear the spoiler hat. You are about to hear spoilers. These spoilers are specifically for The Rise of the Red Shadow, somewhat for the Book of Deacon trilogy as well. If you have not finished reading both of those things, then you can stop watching the video now and you won't be spoiled. Right, so to the questions. The first question is, we know that Lain, the character we come to know as Lain, originally is known by the name Leo, and he was interested in knowing if this is in fact the same Leo that we know from Rise of the Red Shadow. Yes, technically. I mean, when Lain chooses the name Leo, he chooses it because he's essentially adopting a friendlier attitude, a friendlier personality that he thinks Miranda will be more receptive to. So it's established in Rise of the Red Shadow that he's able to imitate Leo, who was part of his training. So he simply calls upon his imitation of Leo, and also the name, perhaps is in honor of his former partner in training, and that's why Lain is Leo at first. So the other question has to do with the cloak. In the trilogy, Leo wears a cloak that allows him to appear not as human, just his face is perpetually in shadow. Keeps him from being identified as a Malthrope. And Billy asked if we would find out the origin of that cloak. Eventually we will. I think I've got another book in me for Lain's story, because there's a big chunk of Lain's life which hasn't been covered yet. That's from the end of Rise of Red Shadow to the beginning of the Book of Deacon. We really have only received just the smallest glimpse of what happened in the meantime, and that was in a short story called Seeking the Shadow. And even then, it's only a single scene that we see that takes place within that time. So I suspect there will be a direct sequel to Rise of the Red Shadow at some point, and it will cover things like where he got the cloak that hides his face, the building of the partnership that makes him the most notable assassin of his time, stuff like that. So hopefully that'll be interesting. Also, by the way, on the subject of Lain and the Rise of the Red Shadow, in this book here, which sits next to me, next to my bed while I sleep, and takes in, well, I'll leave this on because I guess it's technically still spoiler, that holds the ideas I have before I fall asleep and I don't want to forget them. There is outlined an entire story about Sorrel from Rise of the Red Shadow. So that will eventually show up. It might be a NaNoWriMo thing, or it might be a newsletter perk. I don't know. It depends on how long it ends up being and when I start writing it. But yeah, that to look forward to as well. I'll take the hat off now. No more spoilers for the rest of this. I want to thank everyone for remaining a fan, and as always, I invite you to ask any other questions you might have in the comments below. If you haven't picked up Temporal Contingency, I urge you to do so, unless you're not a sci-fi fan, in which case keep your eyes peeled in the future for the redemption of Desmares, which is the next Book of Deacon project that's likely to be finished. And until then, thanks for reading.